Good morning, everyone. We are happy to have both Jake Benson and Greg Pesinger with P3 Peak Performance and Focal Point Coaching to help us better manage our time and ourselves in this new normal. Before we go any further, I just want to take a brief moment to review the functionality of our Zoom webinar. Right now, I have everyone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening to the webinar. And for this presentation today, Jake and Greg will solicit responses using the chat function. However, if you do have a more formal question, please enter them in the Q&A box. You can access that by clicking the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you see a question that is similar to yours or one that you'd like to make sure that we get to, you can tap the thumbs up icon to the left of the question, and that will move the question up to the top of the queue. At the conclusion of Jake and Greg's presentation, we will answer any questions that come up. And for questions we don't get to by the time that we end at 10:15 today, we will answer offline and follow up via email. I also just want to take a brief moment to thank our members, our supporters, and our board of directors who enabled us to bring you this webinar today. Since the pandemic stay-in-place crisis, we have been able to bring you some of the very best thinking about how to navigate this crisis free of charge to the nonprofit community. If you are a member and your membership is up for renewal, I hope you will consider renewing. And if you are not yet a member and find value in the webinar or any associated resources and support that you may have received, I hope you will consider joining. Make sure you signed up to receive the latest information affecting our sector through our newsletters and resources. You can sign up to be on our mailing list on our homepage at cnpe.org. And finally, we want to invite you to join our nonprofit community connections group on Facebook. There you can share and learn from your peers, where we can together begin to explore our collective futures. Now, I'm happy to introduce today our presenters. Jake Benson comes to P3 with a Bachelor of Science in Marketing and Entrepreneurship from the University of Louisville. He's beginning his journey to acquire a Master of Science in Applied Positive Psychology to continue his education and the impact he's able to have on everyone he interacts with. He spends most of his time outside work mentoring the organizations that have contributed most to his development. Greg Pesinger is a performance coach, master trainer, mentor, author, and speaker who works with high-performing individuals and business leaders to identify their authentic selves, build their unique brand, and identify their passion. In short, he utilizes simple tools and strategies to help them realize their full potential quicker than they could do on their own. In his free time, Greg volunteers his time to help young people identify their purpose and set their own course for success through his work on the board of directors of Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and a chapter counselor for the Kentucky Beta chapter at the University of Louisville. He also volunteers in various national roles, including the National Board of Directors and Board of Governors and faculty as leadership facilitator with Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity. I want to just add that Greg and his team have been an integral part of the learning community and faculty at CNPE for a number of years, and I thank them for graciously sharing their knowledge and expertise with us today. So Greg, I'll go ahead and turn the control over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mervyn, and thank you all for attending with us today. We are here to help people help themselves realize their full potential so that they can impact the world in a positive way. Many of you have probably experienced some of our programming through Focal Point Coaching and Training, which is really our business coaching and organizational coaching arm of our company. P3 we have developed really to focus on young adults, young professionals, and people in transition to help them get past a lot of the mindset that gets in the way of realizing their full potential. We have an entire generation of the most talented, compassionate, and caring people that need to get out of their own way so that they can go make a big impact in the world. And we are really in good hands, and we've established P3 really to help them do exactly that. So with that, I'd like to just say, first of all, thank you to Merv, Jake to move me over, and the Center for Nonprofit Excellence. This is a phenomenal organization. For those of you who are members, I would encourage you to continue your membership. And for those of you who aren't, the Center for Nonprofit Excellence is a key ingredient in ensuring successful nonprofit work in our community. Over 2,000 nonprofits, and Merv, I'm going to get these numbers wrong, 400 or 500 members of the Center for Nonprofit Excellence actually realize their full potential every day, learning how to maneuver and manage their own organizations. For those of you who are members, you know this. It's a very valuable organization to our community and to each of you who participate in their learning and development and coaching and training programs. We focus our nonprofit work specifically on mentoring and mentoring organizations. And that's why we are here today. And we really appreciate you attending this with us. I talked a little bit about P3. I want to talk a little bit about what we're going through right now. And first of all, I want to say to all of you that we understand this is not an easy time. Probably one of the most challenging times that any of us, including all of you and your organizations, will face in a lifetime. But I also want to talk a little bit about what we've seen. We've seen amazing acts of courage. Amazing acts of courage of people saying, you know what? Sure, times are a little tough right now. We're going through some challenges. But you know what? We've been in situations before and we've made it through it. Let's put our minds together. Let's believe in a future. Be optimistic about what it can be. Learn something from the difficulties that we're going through today and apply that not only to our organization in the short term, which we will talk a little bit about today, but also how do we take that learning and those things that work, how do we take that learning and apply it to our organizations after we get through this speed bump? How do we do that? Because this learning will probably lead to an even better organization in the future. So with that, Jake, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Merv, thank you for having us, and thank you for the introduction. To everyone here, thank you guys very, very much for being here today. We're here to talk to you guys about mastering the new routine and what that looks like. But first and foremost, before we dive into mastering the new routine, we have to talk about the foundation of all success, which is mindset. So we'll dive into 3 quick tips that can help you with your mindset during this crazy, crazy time right now. So routines are hard to hold together now more than ever because of all the chaos in our lives. But we're going to go through some tips here to help you master it. So where do we begin with this mastering of the mindset so in turn you can master your new routine? With the simple phrase, name it to tame it. Now it seems very simple, but why is it important? Why is it important to truly identify what is going on? Well, Daniel Siegel, a professor of psychiatry at UCLA School of Medicine, conducted studies that really hone this in. So when we are feeling some negative feeling, whether our chest is tight or our hands are getting sweaty or we have this impending fear of doom that is coming over us, all these feelings are caused by the lower part of our brain, the more ancient part of our brain. And what Dr. Siegel found in his studies is that when we use our more recent part of our brain, when we use the upper part of our brain to actually name those feelings that we have, like, wow, I'm feeling anxious right now. That's why my chest is tight, or I'm feeling fearful. That's why my hands are sweaty and I have this crazy feeling of doom coming over me. When we actually are able to name those feelings that we are having, it sends neurochemicals from the upper part of our brain to the lower part of our brain, which calms us, which just allows us to see clearly. So why is this so important right now? It's because when we are under duress, we do not perform at our optimal level. We're not able to accomplish the things that we're normally able to accomplish. And right now we have more stressors in our lives than ever before, whether it be the stress of kind of coercing ourselves into a new routine or working with our family during this time or our businesses that we're trying to run to have the best impact on people around us. So how do we start naming it to tame it? Well, very simple, just by putting it down and saying it out loud. So we want to try this with you all, and this doesn't work, we can scratch it for the rest of the presentation, but we want to hear how this change has made you feel. Type in the question, not the question box, type in the chat box. I'm sorry, Merv, you're probably wincing at that one. Type in the chat box a powerful emotion you have felt because of this new reality. Part of naming it to taming it is putting down exactly how we're feeling. Greg, what's a feeling that has accompanied you during this crazy change?
Well, it's been kind of, Jake, it's been kind of this notion of high stress and anxiety, but in a weird sort of good way, in a motivational way. It's kind of like when you know, okay, I'm anxious today, but I'm anxious for a reason in the future.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little later about, how we do the future. And so that anxiousness in this particular case feels to me like good anxiety. So that's kind of how I feel. Not knowing what the future is, but knowing it's going to be okay.
Definitely.
And worrying and figuring out how to get there. Right.
Definitely. And so we have a couple of answers coming. Overwhelmed and lost. That is very typical for everything that is going on. And it's super important for us to put words to that, because neurochemically, it allows us to be better leaders for organizations that you guys are. If you to be able to calm employees, because I know that if Greg was fearful all the time, and he showed how stressed out he possibly could be, then I would take on the same lens as him. This pandemic is real, and all the feelings that are associated with it are real. The stressors, all the changes, the unorthodox situation is all real, and that is where we must start. We must define the problem in order to solve it. And we must analyze where we are now before we're able to move forward. So before this pandemic, 31% of people worked from home, and now there's more than 65% of people working from home, which is absolutely crazy. And it is difficult for us to make this transition.
Our pets love that.
Yeah, our pets do love that, and we'll get into that here in a little bit.
I think the Humane Society is one of the groups on, so it's like a really good time for pets.
Oh, definitely. We have uncertainty, but not just for now, but over the next 12 months, which is super, super true, because everything that we're getting is changing every single day. So first, start with naming entertainment, and I'll pass it to Greg to move forward.
We'll talk a little bit about control, and often in challenging times, a human reaction is try to get our arms around it or control it. We as human beings like being in control. As Jake mentioned, that part of the brain that really drives our fight or flight or even freeze situation likes to feel like it's in control, and the front part of our brain tries to do that. But I want to talk a little bit about the paradigm of control. There's really two kinds of controls, and if you remember back from your psychology classes, there is this, it's called the locus of control, and it's internal or external. So the question I have for you, and we're going to talk about around this area of mindset, is do you have an internal locus of control? Do you take responsibility? Do you name the situation? Do you see the future as optimistic? Do you have a plan to get there and a vision for what it can be? Or do you have an external locus of control? Do you see the situation as unmanageable? Do you blame the situation or make excuses for why we can't get from where we are to where we want to be? Now, there's some very real things going on in the external world that are not controllable. That's probably about 15%. About 85% of those things that are controllable are in our own minds. So it's really important, as Jake mentioned earlier, that we identify the stressor or identify the challenge, and then approach that with a sense of the things we can control. We cannot control the epidemic. We cannot control the economic challenge that's coming from that epidemic or pandemic. We cannot control whether someone in a restaurant's wearing a mask and someone's not. But we can control how we look at it, how we react to it. And a person with an internal locus of control or a forward-thinking, I'm in control, person's going to have more self-confidence, more self-esteem, and in doing so, will actually get closer to achieving that end result that they are looking for. So, last piece: control what you can control yourself, 85%, and see that with the ability of taking responsibility, an optimism for the future, a vision for what it can look like, and a plan to help get you there. And we'll talk through some of that today.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. So our last piece of mindset here. So Einstein famously said, the most important decision you will make in your life is whether you believe you live in a hostile or friendly universe. And that holds incredibly true for today. Do you view this turmoil as something that is going to rip your organization apart, or is it a time that is forcing you as a person to innovate and your organization to innovate to be better? 65% of successful businesses start in a downturn. But why is this? It's because chaos breeds change. It forces people to innovate. This is time that is forcing you to innovate. So right now you have two choices. You can choose to take this on with a positive lens. That it's a time to innovate yourself, to innovate your routine. Even though we're working towards go back to normal, not all people are going to go back to the office. Is this a time forcing you to innovate, to change up your work structure and focus on the people around you, and focus on your culture? Or are you going to choose a negative lens? That this is impeding failure, that all this stress is going to become overwhelming and not what you want it to be. You have the opportunity to view this as a time that is going to be able to shape you and make you better at what you do, because it's a blank canvas. Or it can be something that becomes overwhelming and that you and your business do not recover from. But the choice is yours. And the way that we'd like to show this to people is we tell people to choose the lens that they want their employees and their coworkers to have. They look for you to how to feel and how to react. So the lens that you choose as leaders in your organization that you guys are here today, they will in turn choose the same exact thing. So for mindset, name its attainment, focus on what you can control, and choose a positive lens. And now we'll dive into more of mastering the routine. So there's some obstacles that are new to us that we are facing and working from home. And the number one that hinders us now that we have this new routine at home, or this new routine in a new office that we may be in, is distractions that we normally do not have. When you're working at the office, you usually don't have your pet dog coming up to you trying to, want you to pet it. You don't have your children running up to you.
Although we allow that here.
We do, which is really, really fun, right? Which is really, really fun. Or when you're at your office, you don't have your children coming up to you asking you to play, or your spouse talking to you while you're in the middle of a big conference. There are a plethora of distractions here. And why do these distractions make it so difficult to get work done? Of course, there's a time that the distractions actually take up when you have, your kid come up to you for a minute, or your dog come and let you pet it for 30 seconds. And this happens a couple times, and this adds up to just 3 minutes in the day. But it's so much more than that when you look at it in the broad scheme of things, which I'll turn it over to Greg here in a second. Mm-hmm. You would say, oh, it's just 3 minutes, but so much more time feels lost with these distractions. And Greg's going to talk about why.
So for those of you who have sat through our time management programming, focus is a big piece of this. And we've talked about this whole notion of single focus. And I think now more than ever, this is really important. We're all in busy organizations, and right now your programming is probably on top of your mind. How am I going to pay for it, or fundraising is there? And then what am I going to do with my staff? My staff that's also living not only personal but professional uncertainty. So you've got a lot of plates in the air, and you're trying to keep all these things spinning at one time. The recommendation that we would make to you today around this whole notion of focus is single focus. And you're going to say, well, how can I do that? What does that mean? Single focus means pick your most important task that you have to do each day, and we're narrowing this down to each day. We need to be in the present right now and working on day-to-day programming. Pick the most important task in that day and do it first. Do only it first. And we're going to talk about some other ways in order to set up your environment in order to do that. If it's a task that crosses multiple days or months, or it's a large task, break it in or break that down into small chunks. Say 15, 20-minute, 1-hour chunks, and then spend 100% of your time focusing on that task during that particular chunk of time. I would also suggest that you use a block scheduling approach. So make sure you schedule that chunk of time each day and work on that same thing every day to build a routine to work on the thing that you're working on at that particular time. Here's a key fact. Every time you have a distraction, it takes your brain about 14 to 17 minutes to re-engage, completely re-engage in the task that you were in before. So every time an email flashes and you stop and answer. Every time someone knocks at the door and you have to go answer the door. Every time that you have a distraction on your desk that you look at, brain stops thinking about what you're doing, you lose states of flow or being in the zone, and you get a lot less efficient. On average, in the average office space, about 4.5 hours out of an 8-hour day is actually spent doing valuable work. It's because of all these distractions. So think about, add up 15 minutes for every time you're distracted, and you've used probably half a day in just being distracted or not being fully efficient or focused on the particular task or objective that you're working on. So single focus, whether it's for a whole project till it's done before you move to the next, or for a significant block of time, so that you can focus 100% on it before moving to the next task.
Definitely, just a quick just this quick number on focus and distractions. Of course, there's distraction at the workplace, but there are even more distractions at home. And if you have just 4 more distractions a day at home of your dog or your kid or anything happening, that can add up to over 4 weeks. That's 20 hours of focus that you typically would have at the office gone every 4 weeks, which is absolutely crazy.
Can we ask in the chat box, can you just punch in there some of the distractions you have? I'm assuming some of you are at home homeschooling. Big distraction.
Yes.
But you will be a much better homeschooler if you do that just during certain periods of time. Work, I'm sure, is happening. Your personal life, your human life, all of that's happening. So can we get some people just to type in the chat box some of the distractions you're facing, and we'll try to address those as we go through the.
I know when I'm working from home, I have a 11-year-old brother and a 9-year-old sister, and they don't get the work more. So it's Jake's at home. Let's have a lot of fun with them. So I know that's the distraction for me.
Oh yeah. I have a dog that likes to bark every time the Amazon guy comes to the front door.
Yes, which is a lot during this, right? Okay, we'll give people a second, but I'll go ahead and move forward if that's all right, Greg.
Yeah, fine.
So the last tidbit of things that make it difficult for us to master our routine is our environment right now. Your environment plays a dramatic role in our ability to function at optimal level. So our office that we're in, before all this craziness started to happen, it was perfect for us to function at optimal level. But why is this? It's because it was a habit loop trigger for our brain. So what is a habit loop trigger? So over time, our brain develops loop triggers that help keep the amount of cognizant processing that we have to do to a minimum. So what this means is when you lay down in bed, it signals to your brain that this is time to sleep, and it starts to slow all of your production of your chemicals that keep you awake. But when you sit down in your office chair, it signals to your brain that it is time to work. But when you sit down at your kitchen table to work, it doesn't signal to your brain to work. It's not a habit loop trigger for your brain to start working. When you sit at your kitchen, it may be signaling to your brain like, oh, it's time to eat,
yes.
or it's time to converse with the family. And this is a barrier that we must overcome in order to master the new routine that we're faced with. And this is just part of naming everything that's going on, all the different chaos that comes with working at home. But so important to understand what obstacles are in our way in order for us to overcome it. Another part of the new environment that is difficult is we're not around our team of people who had a common goal during the workday. You're left to your own. You're left at your own at your residence. The group atmosphere is gone, and so is the motivation that brings along with it. Your home environment isn't meant for work. There are things we can do to change that. And we'll go ahead and dive into that to get you guys on top of mastering your routine.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about setting some rules of engagement. And this is really, really important. It's really identifying those things that are getting in the way, those things that are interrupting you, keeping you from having focus, and setting up really rules of engagement or boundaries. So you have a conversation in this case with your children or whatever, that this is mommy or daddy's work time. You ensure to set these rules when you're available to chat and be able to talk through it with them. So it's just not just like, I'm working. That doesn't work. They need to know a why. They need to understand that this is your time to do a specific thing. Start with empathy. Chances are all of the people you are interacting with at home, or your employees via conference or on the phone or whatever, are all dealing with similar kinds of stresses in their own lives. So we need to be empathetic and understanding about what they're going through as well, in order to be sure that our rules of engagement are understanding it from their perspective as well. So have you set any rules of engagement for your family? If you would, please type them in the chat box, and we will talk about that.
I know that even to add on to rules of engagement with your family, it's super important to set rules of engagement for yourself while people are typing in. So you have to set rules of engagement for when you start work, when you get off work, when your breaks are, and what distractions you will allow on a day-to-day basis. Or else when you'll just wake up whenever you want, and your work will be of the same caliber of your team, which is non-existent, right? And it's important to reward yourself for following these rules of engagement. And at the end of the day, they're set up to help you be better at what you're doing, which is super important. And we understand that it's difficult to set rules of engagement with your family, especially with your children. And some people are single parents and they're homeschooling. So we understand that it's really, really difficult to do. But if you're not able to set rules of engagement with the people around you, start setting rules of engagement with yourself.
So can I ask you while comments are coming in, what rules of engagement have you set for yourself?
So I've set for the when we were working at home, I set my rule of engagement of when I'm going to wake up, what task I need to get done with the day, and how long my lunch is going to be, and what I'm going to get off. So it provides structure to the workday, and I try to mirror it with a normal workday as well. Or otherwise, I would sleep until I would sleep 10 hours and everything wouldn't because I am at home. So that's the rule of engagement I've had to set with myself, and it's keeping my place and neat and work in the same place
Right.
as well.
Can you come in?
Yes. Yes, it definitely is hard with a child because everything has changed so drastically with everything going on. And this is at the point where we applaud you for staying strong for your children, for your family, with everything that is difficult that is going on, and staying strong to your business as well and organization, because that is the best that you can do right now. It's hard to negotiate with the child, right?
Yeah.
But there are things that we can do to combat it. I know something that I've read is showing your child what work you are doing during the workday. So they found that exciting.
It's sort of like a bring your daughter or son to work day every day, right?
Yes.
If you spend some time where they can actually learn what you do, chances are they're curious and be interesting learning opportunity as part of your homeschool.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's not going to be perfect, but it's doing the best that we can with what we have right now. So something that's super important that involves the habit loop triggers that I talked about earlier is you need to find a space that you're able to designate for your work. Now this can be almost anywhere. I'm not going to say anywhere. Whether this is your kitchen counter, your basement, or you throw up a little table in your closet, whatever it may be, make it yours. Because after a while, when you're able to sit down and start work at the same spot, it becomes a habit for your brain. It starts kicking in. Your focus is much more keen and honed, which is so important. Don't make your workstation your bed or your couch or places that typically are used for more of a relaxing time when your brain slows down. We want to be high energy. We want to get everything that we possibly can, every ounce of energy we can out of our workday. Of course, make your workstation away from others if possible, a place that will help to minimize distractions, but we know that is not possible at all times, so do the best that you possibly can. We have to remember that our working from home is not going to be a perfect office environment, but it's important to make it the best we possibly can. And this is so important as well when you're conversing with your colleagues or your employees or your coworkers, is help push them in this direction as well, so that they're able to establish these habits.
Speaking of habits and routine, this is significant, quite frankly, for your own mental, physical, and spiritual health. Routines are things in general, inside or outside of a pandemic, that hopefully you have established. And the first routine I would recommend to you is that you establish a routine for yourself. This is even more important in uncertain times. That one thing that is certain every day. And I'm going to give you an example. For me, pre-pandemic, during pandemic, post-pandemic, I've managed my same morning routine. I start with 15 minutes of mindfulness. I follow that with 15 minutes of journaling. I follow that with an hour and a half of reading in my field. And then I follow that with 45 minutes of aerobic exercise. At that point, my wife wakes and we have breakfast together, talk about the day, and I start that day at 9 o'clock. That is my morning routine. And without that morning routine, the rest of the day is pretty much lost. So I've managed to maintain that morning routine. It's important to both my mental, physical, and spiritual health. So it's important that if you had a routine before COVID, that you continue to implement that routine. Take care of yourself first. Give to yourself first so that you have the capacity to give to others. Now, if your routine was all at the office or all at work and now you're working out of your home or in some form of uncertainty and you've just given up all your routines and you haven't established any new ones, then your day is probably chaos. And with that chaos comes a lack of focus, it causes frustration, it causes probably anxiety and overwhelm. It's really, really important that in a time of uncertainty that you create as much certainty in your life. And routines are the best way to do that. You also become much better at it. It becomes habit after a period of time, and you will find that you miss it when you don't do it. So it becomes a really good way to prepare yourself for the situation that you're in, so that your brain can function and think about and be creative and innovate around the kind of adjustments you're having to make now, some of which we hope will carry through after this is over, that you're learning some new things that will really be valuable to us.
And so I did a little bit of research before you created this presentation, Greg, about some things that people can do that they may miss from their old work routine that they're able to bring to their work routine now. And one of them is that people oftentimes used, like they had a morning routine before they went to work, whether it's make coffee and watch the news or drive and listen to their favorite music. And something that has been shown to really, really help is to keep that routine. So when you wake up, be sure to keep, drink your coffee and watch the news. Or if you miss your commute to work, something that people have enjoyed is if they miss driving is actually to go drive and listen to your favorite music and go stop by the grocery store, whatever you need to get your mind ready for
drive around the block,
which is really, really
awesome.
Which is really important. And just routines are so important. Ensuring that you have a pre-work routine, that cleaning your desk off and everything, that your new homework space, whether that's in your laundry room, in the kitchen, whatever it may be, and then having that do the same thing when you're done with your work is super important.
I might add to the end of your day.
Yeah.
A good routine to have pre, post, and during is to know what you're going to do the next day. So the end of your day is a good time to plan with what I'm going to do tomorrow. So it's a really good time to create, again, a routine during the day that helps you get ready for the next day prior to going to sleep. Chances are, and science has proven that the how-to will be being processed in your subconscious while you're sleeping, so that the next day is much easier when you wake up. So plan tomorrow at the end of your day today and make that a routine as well.
Awesome, Greg. Thank you. This is super, super important. We have to be super intentional in setting time to communicate. A team needs to interact in order to perform. A team is much more than just mere transactions of work. It's a group of relationships that work interconnectedly that boost performance of the entire organization. Teams also provide motivation. When you're around a hardworking group of individuals, it calls for you to work hard as well. Now that we don't have this proximity to help us communicate, we must schedule that time in to communicate. Daily Zoom calls with your coworkers, Zoom meetings, catch-ups over lunch, whatever it may be, we have to force that interaction with your team, because it provides much more than just the ability to chat and to keep up. It provides motivation. A beautiful thing that we've seen some organizational leaders have done is to provide consistency in when their team communicates, especially when they're distant or they're not in their remote offices. Whether this be a 15-minute conference call in the morning or a Zoom lunch meeting every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, this communication on a consistent level is key, especially because all the information that we're receiving is very, in the world right now, all the chaos is very unstructured. There is no consistency. The only thing that's consistent is the inconsistency with it, right? And so this consistency and structure provides a level of safety to your team and the people that you interact with, which is super vital and super, super important. Of course, here, any virtual face-to-face interaction is super beneficial.
Turn the cameras on.
Yes, it's so important. And it maintains the relationship. So when you maintain a relationship, you maintain the competitive advantage that having a group of a team together brings.
Yeah. But
even a weekly email to your coworkers is beneficial in keeping the team connected. You have to keep that trust moving and flowing throughout the team. And it's so much more difficult to do something on your own. So if you're able to share all the tips and tricks that you're learning about working from home or dealing with your children during this time, or however you're able to manage this new routine, is super, super important. To be able to communicate that and feel as a community to make sure you're able to push forward through this time.
And can I say one last thing about communication? You're in an awesome organization. So communication with your team, communication with your clients, communication with your community that you're part of, the communication amongst each other. CNPE is a phenomenal organization for best practice sharing. And let's just face it, no matter what cause we are supporting and working with, some of your best learning is going to come from each other. So I would encourage you, if you're not already, to be communicating with each other, each of your fellow members in CNPE, because chances are, with the number of organizations that are involved here, everyone has faced some challenge or issue of some kind, and you might as well share that learning with each other so that you can all move forward in a better way. We're doing that, quite frankly, in the coaching and training business. We have a number of coaching and training business so-called competitors that we are referring business back and forth to each other. We are talking about what's working and not. We're inviting each other to be on our webinars together. So it's really, really important that you come together with your like-minded people and share best practices during this time too.
It is super, super important. I know when we were doing remote work that we made sure to have our meeting every single Friday, and we zoomed at the same exact time, and providing the level of consistency and structure to the team, which made it very, very easy to get our job done. Which is super, super important.
Excellent.
Yes. Enjoy the perks. This is something I think we often let slide with all the stresses of that working from home, or with this new routine that we're trying to complete and to conquer. Now that working from home, of course, it's full of distractions and change and different challenges, but it has a lot of great things that come along with it. Whether it be your ability to have lunch with your family, or take your dog on a walk during your break, instead of commuting to work now, you can use that time to learn a new skill or to work out. There's more time in the day when you subtract your commute. So being able to utilize that for your benefit is so, so important, because it's very easy to get lost in all the chaos, and it's difficult for us to go from the stress of work and then be able to switch and like, oh, I really want to have lunch with my family. We're oftentimes in our head and want to move forward. But being able to enjoy that while we have that is so, so important, and provides a level of comfort and satisfaction in all the chaos that is going on.
It is. Can I add to this one,
Please, Greg?
So this is a really strange thing, and again, I want to express our empathy for what we're all going through, and we're all at different stages with different challenges and so forth. But one of the things that I encourage people to do is look for the good in this. We've done the same thing. I mean, there are days you wake up, and if you don't find good in what's going on in the world, and good is usually related to learning opportunities, or you aren't grateful for what you have. One of the good that I feel like, at least for me personally, that's come out of this is reconnecting, slowing down and reconnecting with the things that are really important. Not only our families, but our time to think, creative time, our time to read or do things that we enjoy. But one of the things I want to talk about here is that the ability to allow your brain enough time to actually come up with new ideas. What we're doing here today, we've moved almost all of our clients over to virtual settings. And I quite tell you, I had a mindset that said, you know what, I need to be there. I need to be face to face with them. I need to have that human connection. I need to have all that comes with being face to face with a person. Virtual is never going to be for me. But here's what I found out. I found out that virtual really saves a lot of that time you've been talking about. I've now, since this thing has happened, have picked up another 5 clients, and I have people waiting in line to be involved. So business has improved because we've been able to get rid of all of the wasted time. We have more time now to spend more time with our current clients and take on additional ones to help additional people get where they want to go, simply because we have moved to virtual. Virtual is going to stay a big part of our model going forward, because we can do 2 things. We can help more people, provide value to more people. We can do it on their time frame, so we can be way more conscious of what times work for them, more flexible in our times together. So they're getting more, we're getting more, and it's all because of this thing that happened. We would have never done this if we wouldn't have had to. And I would be willing to bet that some of the perks that you're getting right now are things that you are doing that you would have never thought of, or thought of and completely dismissed, that you're doing now. And some of those things will carry you forward, and I believe make you a better organization long term for it. So count your blessings in this particular case. What good has come out of this? And good comes out of everything. So find the good in this, and then think about these 3 things. What do I really miss about what we did before? Well, do that and do it better. What do I really not miss? What kind of things were we doing just out of habit? Well, ask yourself, can I stop doing that, or can I delegate it to someone else to do it? Get rid of the things that really don't matter. And then this new learning, think about how am I going to use this new learning to have an even better organization to serve my clients even more in the future. So use this time for the perk of knowledge, for the perk of learning, for the perk of self-development, for the perk of coming closer with the people you love and the things you love. Use this time to spend more time with yourself and understand and know yourself better so that you can be a stronger person moving forward.
Well said, Greg.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Last thing is evaluate. So the things that I'd like to talk to you here as we come to the conclusion of this and get ready to open it up for questions is this is all new, and a beautiful part of working from home is that your approach has to be flexible. Again, with the mindset of learning. Evaluate at the end of each day what new things you've tried, what things you're doing that can be done differently, and literally write this down on paper. Think about how you can improve what you've done. What are the distractions that are there? Identify your distractions and find ways to mitigate them. They're going to be there. I'm not saying they're not going to be there, but find ways to mitigate them or move things around. Have a routine. Maintain your current one where you can. Create a new one where you can. Routines are really, really important, again, for sound mind, body, and spirit. What do you not miss? Get rid of them. Make the changes and then reevaluate each day. There is a lot that will come out of this 2, 3, 4, however many months that we're going to be in this space that you can learn and evaluate and move forward with it. The great thing about all this is it's a blank canvas. It's up to you. Remember that internal locus of control, I'm responsible? Well, it's up to you to define what your future looks like. You can't control what's going on around you, but you can control how you react to it, how you behave, and how you take what's happening and make it the best for you and move forward. So we want to ask a question here before we get to the end?
Sure, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do that.
What is the number one thing you miss from your old work routine?
I'll restate it for you one more time just to make sure they hear. What is the number one thing you miss from your old work routine?
Please put it in the chat.
Socialization. Being able to see people face to face. Most definitely.
People that care about people like being with people. I'm learning that.
That makes sense, right? Everyone here definitely cares a lot about people. Structure. That's a very, very huge one. The structure is there when you're at work. When you're at home, it's much more difficult to create it.
It's much more difficult, but I think creating one and trying it out is important. Yeah.
Definitely. Laughing with others. Zoom call takes away from personality and conversations. Now that is so true. The face-to-face interaction that Zoom brings is so important to keep us connected. But it does take our ability to be flexible, be charismatic, and take our personality out of it a little bit.
That is so true. But I have to tell you, I've been on a few Zoom happy hours, a few Zoom coffee meetings. Some of my favorite ones I was on believe it or not, an 8-hour straight, 8-hour Zoom meeting on mastery on Saturday, and in between every two presenters, every two conversations, they had an MMA mixed martial arts fighter that took us through a shadow boxing exercise, and it nearly killed me, and I was laughing the whole way through it. So there are creative ways to do this. I'm going to be on a call tomorrow night. The National Speakers Association has their annual gala tomorrow, virtually. And I got it in the box. I'm not supposed to know this, but I couldn't wait. It said don't open until tomorrow. Of course, that means open till tomorrow for me. But had all kinds of little like party toys and favors and a box of chocolates and all this stuff in there. So there are creative ways. Get on a Zoom call and come up with creative ways to meet.
Definitely.
Have some fun with it.
Seeing our furry clients, the dogs, cats. Now that is something that is very sad that we can't have in person right now, is being with them. Merce said being able to answer questions by just walking into our office or having to wait for them to answer an email. And something that I've seen companies do in regards to this is they have a couple set times throughout the day where they just have scheduled Zoom meetings, like 10 minutes, like twice a day, where they can cancel if they don't have questions, but they do have questions. It's right there already scheduled, one in the morning and one a little bit in the early afternoon. Make sure they're able to have time to converse with questions, because we can all get bogged down with emails, and it's not as efficient as walking next door to your neighbor, but it's super important to have that as well.
I talk about furry friends. So our furry friend his name's DJ, and a furry friend that drives me crazy when he barks when the Amazon guy comes is also up sitting in my office with me the whole day, and it just makes it a whole lot less stressful. I mean, it's just a really good thing to have these animals. They are family members to most of us, and really, really important.
Yes, thank you all for sharing very, very much. So let's do a quick summary with the key takeaways. First and foremost is accept the reality. What is going on right now is not ideal, but we're able to name the feelings that we have and the stressors and tame those. By naming it, then we're able to be there for our friends, our families, our organizations, and for ourselves. Focus on what you can control. There's all kinds of craziness going on in the world that if we try to focus on controlling everything, we would get lost and all of our energy would be sucked away from us. And our ability to make an impact will be dwindled. Focus on what you can control. Create a positive mindset. Choose the positive lens with everything going on. Live in a friendly universe, not a hostile one. Because there are good things that come out of this. Time with family, your ability to innovate, for you to test yourself and push yourself, for you to learn that new skill since you have a little bit more time at home.
Yeah.
Manage your environment the best that you can. Don't use your workstation don't make your bed your workstation or your couch. Use it and make it clean and somewhere that is you're able to go and repeat day after day, so it becomes a habit loop trigger in your brain to make work that much easier for you. Set rules of engagement with your family if you're able to, whoever lives at your residence. But if not with them, make sure you set rules of engagement with yourself, or else you'll be awry and going in all kinds of different directions. Like everyone was saying here, they miss time to communicate and to interact with people, and Zoom only goes so far. It does take away from the personality of the conversations. But scheduling that time in to communicate is not only good for you to maintain your motivation and your sense of competitiveness, but also brings relationships closer and keeps people connected. And that's so important for your team. It could even provide structure through how you communicate. Every 15-minute phone call every single morning, or lunch and Zoom meetings, which seem to be really, really fun. Enjoy the perks. There are some good things that come out of it, like we talked about, being able to just be with your dog in your office or whatever it may be, or lunch with your family. There's all kinds of craziness going on, but there's always pauses that we can find with all the chaos. And last but not least, evaluate. The beautiful thing about this new routine of working from home, or even when we come back to the office, is that it's a blank canvas. When we're working from home, we have all the time in the world that we're able to manipulate in the best way possible. And we can try different things every single day and reevaluate to see if that works for us. But even more so, as people start to transition back to the office, constantly evaluating what your routine is there. Because we've seen that what works in the office and what works at home, we've seen both sides of the playing field. And we know that some things that we do at the office aren't the best. We could go without that. We will miss that.
What if we learned that we don't have to be in the office all the time? What if we learned that we can accommodate our employees' families by allowing them to have a couple work from home days? Because now they've had to prove that it's productive. You know, what if we're in an organization that has mentors, and we've always thought we got to have face-to-face mentors that are in a certain proximity of our organization? What if we understand that now you can have, and we're doing this a little bit with the fraternity at U of L. I now have 100 young men that can have 100 personal professional mentors, because I don't have to. They can meet virtually from all over the world versus having to live here together. I mean, what if what we're learning through this evaluation creates a better life for our employees and our clients and our volunteers? I mean, what happens if that's the fallout? I can't think of a better thing.
And it's our opportunity. Chaos is a great catalyst for change.
Yes,
it's our opportunity to take advantage of that.
Is a good catalyst for change.
All right, Greg.
Let's before we do this, I'm going to take you and Merv. We're going to take a little out of order, if that's okay. Are you ready for questions? We're gonna provide you guys with a free offer that we think you're gonna like, but let's save that for the end. If there's any questions, Merv, you want us to answer first, that would be awesome.
Great. Well, thank you both. Appreciate it. A lot of great information here this morning. So, folks, if you have questions for Jake or Greg, please type them in the Q&A box, and be more than happy to address them and have Jake and Greg answer them for you. But I want to just reference a couple things that you all said this morning that I thought were key, and I wanted to reinforce that. One was around shared learning and best practices. I think that's really key, and one of the things that we did, and I mentioned it earlier in my introduction, is the nonprofit community Facebook page. There, folks, if you have questions, or if there are resources that you found that you could think would be beneficial to folks in the nonprofit sector. We invite people to join. There's, it's free. You just need to agree by the terms of the agreement and the rules of engagement. And you come in. People post questions. Ed and I help facilitate and manage that. And sometimes we'll post questions to get people thinking or invite people to share stuff. So I think that's a key point and a great opportunity there to do exactly what you all had mentioned about sharing best practices. So folks, if you want to take advantage of that, I invite you to do so on our Facebook page. And then you managed to say this new routine versus old routine, and Greg, I really appreciated your example of your morning routine. I mean, that's very, gosh, that's definitely extremely admirable, and one that I say to myself, like, dang, I really should try to find a way to do that. Do you have any tips or templates or something that help us kind of maybe see that? I think when we did the time management, you might have had something like a written form that people can kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah, I can provide that. So first of all, I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning, so I'm an early riser. The point about a routine is it doesn't have to. Mine's fairly long because I do it between wake up time and when my wife wakes up. So it's my time. It's my time, and I do it in the same space every day. It's just kind of it's break time. And I'm a big believer, and please don't think this is selfish, that you need to take care of yourself first. In fact, Adam Grant, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, has a great book called Give and Take. And if you haven't read it, you should. Pay particular attention to, it's a 20-year study, pay particular attention to the two kinds of givers that he identifies in that book. And I won't be a spoiler alert on that. But here's basically what I do. So my meditation, I do one of two things. I have a free app called Headspace that I occasionally use. And it covers all kinds of things from anxiety to sports, to family and relationships, to all kinds of things. I use that kind of spottingly. What I use, and I'll give you you can go get this. I do a thing called priming. And in priming you do really three things. It takes 10 minutes. My first three minutes of priming is being grateful. So I think of three distinct things that I visualize in my own mind that I'm grateful for. And they could be as simple as I woke up today, or as great as I had an interaction with a relationship that grew into a special friendship. It can be current or in the past. Three things I'm grateful for. And then I follow that up with a process called body scan, where I'm basically mentally scanning my entire body from head to, actually from the universe through my body to my feet into the ground and back up. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking about healing my mind, healing my body, healing my spirit, and the energy that creates. And then I send that energy out in the form of intentions. I particularly use prayer to do it, but in intentions for people I think that need my thoughts. Three distinct people. That's about 3 minutes. And then I think distinctly about the three goals that I need to achieve that particular day. So what am I going to do that particular day? And then at the end of that, then I'm finished with that part, and then I journal. So gratitude, intentions, and goals. That's called priming. If you really want to know a lot about this, a really good source for this is tonyrobbins.com/priming. It will explain that process, and it'll also give you a leader-led process of going through it. So that's what I do. I be quite honest with you. If I miss my morning routine, my whole day is not optimal. So I never miss it. It's not habit.
That's terrific. Thank you for sharing that. That's I'm going to look that up today.
I'll point out one other thing, by the way. A wise man once told me, my reading is in my field. So family business transition right now is a big topic for me. Last year it was positive psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, and positive psychology. A wise man once told me that if you read for an hour every day, that will equate to about 52 books a year in your field. If you do that for 2 years, you have acquired what would be similar to a master's degree in a particular topic, an applied master's degree in a particular topic. So you think about it, 110 hours of study in your field. Think about how much better you can be at what you're doing right now.
That's awesome. That's terrific. Thank you. We actually did get a question come in. So the question is, how can we motivate the team and get them to start on a routine again?
One more time, please.
How can we motivate the team and get them start on a routine again?
How can you motivate the team and get them started on the routine?
Yes.
Of it? Okay. So I think that the first thing is to lead by example. You know, so as leaders in general, is that the first thing, three things: take care of yourself, because you need to be in optimal mind, especially from a mindset. You need to be at your best. The second thing, and Jake mentioned, was communicate. So communicate two things: communicate authority, vision, hope, forward thinking, what we're going to do in the next 30, 60, and 90 days to create optimism and clarity and some self-consciousness about self-confidence about where you're going, and then start to create that plan. So the first thing you can do is do those three things, but by doing those three things, you are going to set an example for your team that they can then step up to. As Jake mentioned, if you're approaching the future with doubt and insecurity, and you're sharing that with your team, they're going to have doubt and insecurity. Create routines. The organization, our office is down here in Nulu. On the first floor is an architecture firm, and they every Wednesday make a point to call all of some employees are at home, some are in the office. They have their choice with their rules that we have here. They call every Wednesday, and when they started doing that, they had a personal call every Wednesday, and they have a team call every Monday, Zoom call with cameras on, required. And when they first started that, they thought it was going to be seen as oversight or a negative thing. What they found was that their employees, that it sent the message to their employees that they cared, and that they actually enjoyed having that human contact with the leadership of that organization. So what they thought was going to happen turned out to be just the exact opposite. And now it's, like I said, every Monday team call, every Wednesday individual calls with each of their 20 or so employees. So you set the routine for them, or lead by example in helping them set their own routine.
Let me reinforce that from like a team member's perspective, or being an employee here. I know that something that really helps me maintain my routine is you sharing your routine with me and showing and letting me know like what you do, because it gives me ideas and examples. And then also when your employer and the leader of your team does provide some sort of structure to part of the days in the week, because I know that we have our team meetings on Fridays, and that provided some structure for me to build around, because it provided a foundation, so I didn't just go from scratch. So I know that from an employee perspective is like having that time to communicate and having that structure already laid out during the week. It's not like something that's like, oh, they don't like trust me or this or that, it's going to be bogging down. It actually is reassuring to me. It provides me some structure that I can build upon, and know that you're maintaining a routine and that you're leading by example. Really pushes me. I know John, one of our coworkers, pushes us to do really, really well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's culturally for us is that we push each other. That Friday meeting that we talk about, each of us has our own piece of the meeting. You can think of it as a round table. We're talking about our projects where we need help from each other and so forth. Part of that creates a routine, not only to have that meeting, but part of it, you know that you're going to be presenting out the work that you did that week, the opportunities that you came up with, who else needs to be involved. So part of that culture is not only the meeting, but the structure of the meeting that keeps people working. You know, I saw a meme on, I think it's Facebook or LinkedIn, I can't remember where it was. Someone was promoting a new piece of software that you could put on all your employees' machines, and it would read their eye movement, screen time, and report back to you just how much they were working. And it was really promoting this new piece of software to make sure your work from home employees were working. And I usually don't make these kind of comments, but I couldn't help myself, because I just dropped it down and said, you know what? I got a new piece of software too that I've installed on all our machines. It's called Trust. So part of the culture is you have to feel like you've hired the right people, you've given them the development that they need, and you make learning a constant opportunity for them, and then you trust them. You have to trust them, then hold them accountable. And if they don't perform, you know what? You owe it to them too to help them understand they're not performing and what they need to do to be better themselves. So I would say that is an important part of this too.
Great, thank you. All right, if anything else has any questions, this is kind of last call for questions. Otherwise, we can.
We're going to give you our contact information at the end. Feel free to shoot us any questions you have if you want private questions, or send them to Merv and he'll get them over to us.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Why don't we, Merv, if it's okay, I'll go through a couple more slides. I don't even know if you know we're going to do this, but we decided to do this last night. So
go ahead.
Go ahead and shoot. So right now, one of the things that we do in our company is we do a lot of assessments, and we use a company called TTI DISC, and you may be familiar with DISC assessments. We have over 40 of them. Well, one that we want to give to you at no cost is this process called the stress quotient. It is a 15-page report. You're going to take a survey, online survey, and it's going to send you back a report that's going to measure your stress, your current stress, and some possible ways to overcome that. So there's going to be a stress index summary. There's a whole, now I show 4 pages of it here, but there's actually 15 pages. And it's something that we would sell for $300 if we were selling it, but we're going to give it away today. We think it will be helpful, especially to you guys, organizations that help other people. We want to make sure that you get the benefit of this. So we're going to make this available. It's a 15-page report. We'll make it available to June 15th. So you can either send a note to Jake Benson at p3peakperformance.com with your email address, so we can email you the links and the codes to access it, or you can send them over to Merv, and Merv will get them to us as well. So. And no limit, no limit on this. We just need to know a number, but we need to shut this thing off by June 15th. So that's an offer we'd like to give you, just to say thank you for all the work that you do for our community, and all the work that you do as leaders for your own staff and the people that are with you, helping you do this great thing for the community. So that's what we'd like to give you. I'm going to go ahead and hit the button. We do have a program if you want to go further, and I'm not going to pitch this, but we do have a program that is new. We just launched this. So if you want to work on things like foundations, organizational skills, executive leadership, and balance, we have a program, and get with us on that, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that as well. I think, Merv, you're going to send the presentation out to everybody, right? So I'm assuming they'll have all these numbers.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Here's our contact information. If you need us for anything, we'd encourage you. There's a lot of free content out on our websites at both Focal Point Coaching and at P3. If you work with young people, we're also now publishing a free podcast. The young people that have come in have created all this new stuff that I never would have done if they wouldn't have come in. So podcasts, blogs related to young people, as well as business and organizations. So the two companies kind of deal with two different groups of people. And then you can, of course, visit us out on any number one of our social media channels. All of this is a no charge, just service, again, to say thank you for your community. Can we have there?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Jake and Greg, thank you again for today. We really appreciate sharing your knowledge and expertise, and for your generous offer on the stress assessment. I may take that myself, see how I'm doing. And for everyone on the webinar today, thank you all for attending this morning. As Greg mentioned, we will send you a copy of the slide deck along with a link to the recording, so you can replay it and share it with those you think could benefit from the information. If you don't see it by the end of the day tomorrow, please check your spam folder. And if you still don't see anything, just drop me a line and I'll be happy to resend. I'll also include contact information for both Greg and Jake, so you can follow up if you have any additional questions. Once the webinar ends today, I will link a link to the survey will appear for some feedback. So if you could please take a couple minutes to fill that out, we greatly appreciate it. Finally, we have a few more webinars coming up. We have our second session of our grant writing bootcamp series, which we launched back at the beginning of the year. The session in June has been moved online, so if you're interested, please see our website for more information. And I mentioned the Facebook groups, and please feel free to follow us on social media as well. With that, on behalf of all of us at CNPE, thank you again for joining us today. And we hope to see you all again next time. So thank you and have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you all. Thank you very much. Have a great one.